there's a lot of you on here, and as BNR people, we tend to all talk at the same time. So I'm going to say maybe we can put it into the chat box, and at the end we'll open it up to everyone. But we'll go through, there's a lot of cool stuff that we're going to go through, a lot of stuff that I learned along this process. And so what we will start with is Eric's going to give us a tour of our old doubles court quickly, and then we're going to move to Gary, which is going to give us a very interesting tour over there, and then we'll start off with our presentation. But thank you so much to everyone for coming on. It's been a really long time since we've seen our community, and as you know, the BNR group is extremely tight, and the pros are sure missing all of you, and it's really great to see everyone. So I don't even have a glass, but I'd love to raise a glass. I'll raise my phone to the whole group. Cheers.
Well, here's everyone else does, right?
I think you're allowed to do a Zoom call without a drink.
I was fixing Gary up on the doubles court, so I couldn't get one.
There's my chair I'm not allowed to sit in.
And you only drink spritzers anyway, so what's the point?
Yeah. So we're gonna let Eric do a quick little tour of our old, beautiful doubles court, and we can't wait to be on it, and then we will pass it over to Gary. So over to you, Eric.
Yeah, no problem. I didn't know this was coming, so this is off the top of my head. Let's see, where do we begin? I'm sitting in the oldest existing double squash court in Canada, built in 1947. But the first doubles court ever built in Canada was in, did you know where that was? It was actually at the Badminton and Racket Club, and it was at the other side of the club, which is no longer there, but it's where the members lounge used to be. And that was built in shortly after the club was taken over. So in the early 1920s, that was Canada's first ever doubles court was on that side of the club. So that's a little known fact, which we uncovered not that long ago. The nice features of this court are, this is an all wood court. This was built out of bowling alley floor. This is one of the first doubles courts built out of wood. And they discovered that bowling alley floor obviously could take the impact of a doubles ball. So they turned that flooring on its side and built the sidewalls with the wood on its edge. And the vertical boards, the front wall, is the same wood but turned on its side vertically. And I'm not sure why the boards run horizontally on the sides and vertically on maybe Gary or Narelle, or you will know the reason why or what the rationale is. But one suggests that it's it would handle the impact better of the ball on the vertical side, the stronger side of the wood. Yeah, this is another beautiful feature of this court is the ceiling height. This has got 26.4 feet of clearance, which we all know the classic lob serves and the height that is required is a beautiful feature of this court, and that's one thing that we needed to make sure was preserved or replicated on the other side. The beauty of a wood court is, and I'll let the pros who actually can play the sport to describe it, but it is definitely my preferred. Not that it has any value to it, but my preferred court is always the wood. And I absolutely adore this club. I sent a couple photos this week. Just I happened to be going through the archives. I sent a couple photos, and one of them I sent to Mike Pernak, who's one of the few guys to win a tournament on both walls, a pro tournament on both walls. And he said that brings back great memories, and this is by far his favorite court to ever play on, and he misses it. So it is in many people's opinion is one of the best courts in the world. So it's a fantastic space to play. And that's over from court one. Reporting live from court one.
Over to court two, Gary.
Way to go, Baldy.
Way to go, Baldy.
Yeah, we got to drink again.
Okay, drink again. There we go.
Cheers.
Okay,
Court number one.
The Baldy.
No one
Baldy,
is without a
go,
drink in
boy.
this group.
To court one.
To court one. Gary, wait.
I can speak?
Yep, you're allowed to speak.
Okay. Well, first, are we going to let Pernak on this court?
Certainly not the first group. The first group that goes out there will not be Pernak.
Good. Okay. So I was half joking before. I was sort of wandering around the court looking for for problems with the court. I hit on it, I don't know, a few months ago, maybe it was a few years ago, I don't even know now. But the first thing you notice about this court is not only is it beautiful, but it is incredibly straight and true. So the thing, if you look at most courts, singles and doubles courts, the gap in the floor and between the floor and the side wall is rarely consistent. So, devil's in the details. And as far for this court, it's remarkable. There's only one area maybe that's a little wider than the rest of the area, but it is the straightest cut I've ever seen along a side wall on the floor. So I can only imagine that perfectionism has been carried through. And really, I guess the main thing is that if you were going to build a doubles court as sort of an installation or a piece of art to show off, or to sort of archive or show people a game in the future that they used to play in the past, not meant to be played on because you didn't want to ruin it, and you basically made a sculpture, this would be it. It's beautiful. The color is beautiful. It's the texture on the walls. It's very tactile. And I know that when I played on it, it's amazingly true, and it has that sort of heaviness to it. When you hit a ball, sometimes courts they beat you up a bit, and there's a bit of a ping, a bit of you can't really sense the ball hitting the walls. Whereas in this court, the walls absorb the ball a little bit, and there's a little bit heavier of a feeling and a thud, so you can sort of feel your way around the court a little bit better.
Awesome. So Gary, can we just save a few more of those thoughts for when we get into actually breaking it down? I love it. You're just ahead of the game, ahead of the presentation.
Sure.
Amazing. All right. So before we get started, I just want to welcome all of you to our new doubles court. And there was a guy in this whole process of the BNR squash court happening. So we want to give a big shout out to Raymond Van Groel. So Raymond Van Groel is a structural engineer, and it was a really big feat to make this new doubles court. And he was one of the people that tabled all of the members' feelings for decades about wanting a second doubles court here at the BNR. And what happened was, because he's a structural engineer, he actually went to town and told us how to go about it. So on the south side of the club, where the old women's locker room used to be, and beside the badminton court, he was able to tell us how we actually could dig down into the ground in order to maintain a proper ceiling height. So our old doubles court is about 26.8 feet, and now the new one is 27 feet. So it's pretty cool that we figured out how to make this work in our small little footprint here at the BNR. So anyone who's been here, and members and those of you abroad, it's a small little club, and we're really using the space in a really neat way. So anyways, I'm going to pass it over to Dan. He's just got a couple more things to say before we move along.
Yeah, thanks, Marci. So Raymond Van Groel, where do I begin? I think we can all agree that the club is really shaped from the passion that a lot of the members like Raymond possess. He's been an amazing voice for a lot of people. Without a question, he's very in touch with the unique personality that our club has, for lack of a better word. And he definitely brings that into the equation when it comes to some of his fantastic ideas. So we, as a sports team, Marci, Eric, Catherine, and I, amongst the rest, we like to recognize each other by finger snapping. So if you guys could put down your glasses for just one moment, Neil, just one moment.
No.
And wherever you are, Raymond, if you can hear us, we'd all just like to give you a bit of a finger snap to recognize you for your efforts. So everybody finger snap it out for RVP.
Thank you, Dan. That's fabulous. All right, so I'd like to move along and I'd just like to introduce you to tonight's expert panel. We have a really cool group of people coming on to talk about this doubles court, because as many of you know, most of the time we hear about doubles or squash courts overall being taken away. Well, it's a pretty big feat when we can actually say we're putting in a doubles court. And to say the least. We're actually putting in a very special court, a wood court. So the BNR is very proud of this. So I'd like to introduce you to our first guest. Now, on his bio, we've actually given him the tough picture. Gary actually hit Yule, so we thought it was fitting for this situation. So Yule McGregor is, we call him Spider-Man on the doubles court. That's his nickname. He has one crafty reverse. He's a wood and construction specialist, and his company is Yule Built in North on 60, and he's been a big help and voice in making this court what it is, and knowing the little specific details that's really going to make it special. So we want to say thank you so much for being such a huge supporter of the doubles court creation and also our program overall. So we wouldn't be able to do it without you. And man, if we say the word wood, you jump really high, and we appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you. So the idea of this stained maple court came kind of about a year and a half before we got to the BNR. I was talking with Robin Clark down at Hotel X, and Robin and I talked about building doubles and singles courts using this technique. At that point in time, it was kind of pie in the sky. They were on hold. Construction manager Brookfield got fired. The rest went into lawsuit. Robin left, and that idea with Robin left. And when I joined the BNR and realized that there was some possibility of a future doubles court, I talked to Eric about it, and Eric was like, how can that be? Show me. So I took it upon myself to find water-based solutions, because if you have any oil-based solution over time, it tends to yellow. So I did a bunch of different kinds of mock-ups, and I located an old company in Toronto, Gowdy, who we've used for years, and we got a water-based white stain from them. And then I kind of talked to everybody I knew in the industry and did some tests. And the thing that we ended up using as a top coat to preserve the white is an anti-graffiti coating. So it's a two-part epoxy anti-graffiti coating. So
Yule,
yeah.
Can I just interrupt for 1 second? Can we just go through who's all speaking? And then I've got all the pictures for you to speak about this exactly to the point, so that then everyone knows what's going on here. So can I just hold you back for just 1 second? Yeah. I'm so excited that you're so excited about this. So just quickly to go through the bios, and we're going to get going here. So Gary Waite is also on our panel tonight. When you ask Gary to write you a bio, this is what you get. Responsible for reinventing the game of squash doubles and bringing it into the 21st century. This doesn't even cover all that this guy has done for squash.
You can't make that stuff up. You
can't make this stuff up. It was amazing. And this picture of him and his wife, it's amazing. And then we've got Narelle Krizak. So I don't know if many of you know this, but this woman is known as the best female player of all time. So she's very modest, and she wrote something very, again, didn't say much about herself. She also started the women's squash doubles tour. So she was the person who said women also need to be making money playing this game. So it's a pretty special thing to be talking about, because not that many people know about this. She was the #1 in the tour, undefeated for 3 years in a row. She's won world championships, US Opens, mixed, Canadian Open. She's the mother of 2 amazing boys. And she is currently now working on, I don't know if people know about this, but in the US, they are putting together this National Squash Center that is unbelievable. It has 18 singles courts and 2 doubles. And within a mile radius, clubs galore to be able to make huge, intense tournaments that are going to happen soon. So Philadelphia is going to be the epicenter of squash in North America very, very soon. And Narelle is on the fundraising committee and is making this happen and making squash bigger. So she continues her legacy of growing this game, and one of the biggest advocates of women's squash out there, and one of my best friends. So would like to welcome her to this call. Okay. And hopefully you guys get to hear some of her Aussie accent. It's great. All right. So a couple questions that have been asked around, and so we want to clarify these and let all of you know about this. So who built the B&R double squash court? So this is an Anderson built court. They came in and they were definitely, there was some supervision with a few very keen and passionate members. Maybe you might have been one of those people in there. So I'm gonna now start moving forward in why is a wood court so special? So Yul, I'm gonna get you to pop in here now, and I'm gonna work through all of these slides, and if you can just speak to this. So this is a really cool shot of the construction as it was going on. So the wall design, edge grain maple. Dan, you have a couple questions for you. Can you start?
Yeah, I want to see Spider-Man on the hot seat if I can. You with me?
I'm with you, baby.
Okay, so my first question to you would be, I'm wondering why would one choose edge grain maple over a different material option? What makes edge grain maple our selection?
So, I mean, gym floors over the years have always been out of hard maple. There's hard maple and soft maple, or hard maple and all the other maples. The maple from maple syrups is from hard maple. So it rings in on this scale for wood hardness called the Janka scale at about 1800. And it's probably North America's hardest hardwood next to ironwood. And it's readily available. It's a commodity product. It's available in color grade as well as in free from knots. And so it's about 3 times as hard as Eastern white pine, group of 7 white pine. So it's 3 times as hard as that. And so very hard to mark, to dent, when a squash racket hits it. The only thing that would be harder is if it were end grain, but this is all edge grain. The side walls are each 1.25 inches deep or thick, and they're laid up in 12-inch panels. And so they go about 14 feet long by 12 inches high, and they get laid one on top of the other, and then they get glued and screwed in place. And the front wall is 1.75 inches thick. And again, you've got a harder impact on the front than the side walls, except when you're 3-walling in the back left and right corners. And so
I've seen that shot from you a couple of times, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and so that front wall is going to be even thicker. And I mean, the floors were graded for color, whereas the side walls were just what's called pure grade, which is nothing really dark, and mostly mid-tone colors. And so before the court contract was let, Eric and I went through this on you remember the 2 courts, the singles courts that had the water damage. When they first got laid, they were, a whole rainbow of colors from dark to very white. And so we took the opportunity when that got pulled up to change it for graded for color so that floor is quite white. And then that got us into talking about this. And so edge grain maple can handle the impact better than just about any other readily available hardwood in North America. Some of the less expensive courts that I've been on, they use ash for flooring. But those less expensive courts that use ash for flooring have, panel walls made from vinyl, melamine panels. So we've got, world's best court from a engineering standpoint. Thank you, Raymond. And from a manufacturing standpoint, thank you, Gordy Anderson. I mean, he's been doing this for 40 years. And there's a little aside here. I might as well get it in now. When we were starting down the design path on the wall finish color, Gordy called me and said that the contractor at the Modern Museum of Art in New York City was told to stop putting paint on the walls because the developer, Hines, largest property owner in North America, said, "You're not painting those walls. The walls are way too beautiful. Is there any other options?" And Gordy said, "Well, there's this crazy guy up in Canada who's thinking of doing something different." So then they called me. And I mean, I'm not, because of COVID, We haven't gone down to visit, but there's kind of an open invitation there to BNR players once this thing, passes, to go down and play singles on the same type of finished court above MoMA.
Very cool.
Oh.
Very, very cool.
Very cool.
Wow.
Amazing.
He knows
Is
his
Gordy
stuff.
still with PlayCon, or is this a new group that he's got?
Sorry, say that again?
Is Gord still with PlayCon, or has he got a new group, or?
It's
No,
Anderson
Gord-
Courts has always been Anderson Courts.
Yeah.
Because I thought he had PlayCon, which he was building as well.
Long time ago.
So that's changed, eh? And is the back wall glass, or is it,
The back wall is all glass. Yes, and there's a small 2 risers seating at the back of the court.
so from a pace of play, is it as fast as the old court? Or if you look at, say, the Toronto Rackets Club court, the wall and the construction, the material, how does the ball move, Gary and Marci, relative to some of these other fast courts?
We are going to get there. I'm actually just going to go through a little bit more of the makeup, and Gary is going to actually there's a section for him to give his review on the testing that he did. And he is going to tell you all about that. So hang in there. We're going to get to that question. Okay, so let's quickly go to the next slide here. So we've got the bounce. So I'm going to get Narelle and Gary to jump in here at any time. So quickly, Yul, can you just quickly tell us about what you did on the floor to ensure that we're going to have the best nicks in the world?
Yes. So, I mean, there's a sprung floor. I think you've got another shot that shows you the sprung floor. But this shot here, I mean, it's really critical that they keep the same distance, as Gary noted earlier. And it's also really critical that that last edge board is glued. I mean, I'm sure all of us have, been the recipient of a ball that hits the floor, you swing and you're like, wait a minute, there's no way that I shouldn't have hit that ball. That's because it's a loose board. And so the impact of the ball hitting the board is lost in the airspace and without it being fully bonded to the substrate below. So I was hard on that.
Or it's just because Baldwin just missed it.
Yeah.
There's that. But so yeah, when they were putting down that edge board, I was hard on the stick. I mean, I went around, I talked to the guys a few times, make sure it's fully buttered on the back with PL Premium. And so they, I went around afterwards doing a tap test, and it's bomber. I mean, that's one of the biggest bugbears, I think, of any court. Those last 2 edge boards on the side walls on the floor. So I think we're going to have like an unbelievable court.
So Narelle, I'm going to get you to pipe in here. You're known to be the Nick Queen. So why do you love the bounce on a like a wood court, and what typically happens with that for you? Like, does it sit? How does it work for you? What's the
So generally they'll come from the first contact on the side wall. So if I'm trying to hit a 3 wall, it's where on that side wall does it go into, and how the ball then absorbs on the wood. So when you play on a wood court, it's so easy to get the true accuracy of your geometry of where you're trying to hit it. So then by the time it gets to the front wall,
Oops.
I can't hear you.
again, it's going to hit the front wall, and you can't get a true feel for it. If it's on the cricket court is the concrete, and so that's obviously better than the panel, but it still can skip temperature. And it's a lot of where the wood and the ball absorbs together, I think.
Gary, do you have anything you want to talk about on the bounce? Uh-oh, is he still there?
He fall over.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Oh gosh, yeah. Gary, are you there?
He's on the floor.
Can you hear me?
Yep, you can.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so no, the bounce, as I said before, the wood has a sort of a heavier feel, and what that ends up doing is it gives your ball a little bit of carry. So, I always talk about courts, I sort of rate them on how much they beat you up and how much you can beat the court up. And, panel courts, you beat the court up, and cement courts, they beat you up. But a court like this, you can work with, and you get a lot of carry. You can kind of roll the ball around the court, and that's partially because of the spring in the wood, the absorption of the wood, the resilience of the wood, the texture of the wood, and also the sort of the feel that it gives you. So, people who have a good sense of the court, there'll be sort of fewer lucky winners that everybody's sort of out of touch with the bounce of the ball, and there'll be more people's senses, I think, will be more intact around the bounce of the ball on this court.
Interesting. Really cool feedback. Narelle, I'm going to ask you this. So can you rate some of your favorite wood courts that you've played on out there? Like, I have a couple that come to mind for me, but any that come to mind for you?
So your court, do you remember when I played the Worlds?
Yeah.
There at your court? I love that court. Is that the old court?
Yep, the old court.
Yep. I learnt playing doubles at Baltimore Country Club, and so that's a Anderson court as well. But their floorboards were really hard. So I loved the wall, but I didn't love the floor. And then Marion Cricket Club has their old court, which is it's down in a dungeon. I love that court because it's a little bit cold. You can really put the ball away. So they're probably my three favorites.
Gary, what about you?
Well, the Racket Club of Chicago, the dimensions are off. It's shorter and narrower, so you can hit the side wall and the back wall nicks a lot faster. I'm not sure how good that is, but the old B&R court, I don't like it very much. I love the people, I love the club, and I hope I can stay here, but I don't like it much.
Gary, be careful what you're saying.
No, I don't, personal preference, but it's for those reasons. It beats me up. I love this court. So,
Okay, we're going to get there. We're going to go to Gary's testing. We're going to get your
very different.
Gary, why didn't you like that court?
I don't know. Men are from Mars and women are from Venus, I guess.
Maybe I can beat you on that court with your crutches.
Maybe if you fly up here in the next 2 days, you can, but you're running out of time.
Gary would probably start practicing tonight and he wouldn't leave, but anyway.
He would beat
Awesome.
me
Thank
with
you,
his crutch, hitting the ball.
There's a famous story of when I met Gary Waite when I worked at the Lakeshore. I remember the first few days that I worked there, I was like, this guy has just spent an hour hitting a ball straight down the wall, like an hour, the same forehand drive. Then he would go and he would do sprints for an hour, and then he'd come back and he'd do the backhand for another hour. Then he'd go back out and do sprints. And then I'm pretty sure it was the boasts that were next, but that's how I knew Gary. He would just literally practice like crazy and can hit a nick literally from anywhere.
Just because I knew I had to be somewhere. I just couldn't remember where it was.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about this, because I think the sound is a really fascinating part about wood courts. And you and I were having a great discussion about this. And, the B&R Court 1 doubles court has this amazing viewing gallery that's actually above the court. And it's rare for that to happen and for that to work out. And it not be so loud when people are up there and like to hear and things like that. Yul, can you kind of speak a little bit about what the difference is between, the plaster courts, the panel courts, the wood courts? Why is it so great?
Well, wood traditionally is sound absorptive, and maple at 1800 on the Janka makes it's actually not that sound absorptive. However, when you compare it with something like concrete or melamine panels, it's more sound absorptive. And I think one of the reasons that the Court 1, the existing stadium court, has got that great acoustic balance is that you've got a lot of square feet of carpet on the risers and the seats. And so that soaks up a lot of sound. And it's an old court. There's a lot of gaps in the wood. So some sound can travel and permeate through that instead of bounce off at times. But I mean, a wood court just sounds better. When you hit a ball off a wood court, it sounds good. When you hit it off of a concrete or melamine walls, it's like melamine. It's very loud. So yeah, I'm not going to say this court, the new court. Well, you can hear Gary rolling around in there, right? It's echoey, but there's no humans, and there's been no attempt at trying to mitigate any sound with panels from the ceiling or anything. So I think it's going to be just fine. But I don't think the walls and the floor are going to absorb that much sound there.
Be interesting.
Just because it's so hard.
Right. Okay. Cool. One of the things that you were talking about earlier that I was trying to get you to hold off on until now. I don't know if you want me to play the video that you sent me. So why is our court different? What's making it so special? So because ours is different than others, and it's rare that you see this. So I should be able to play this. Are you good if I play it? You?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
Process, and then you can talk about it. Let's do it. So this is the finish.
So here we've got Victor Bronco and Andrew blending and applying.
That's Gordy Anderson's brother on the right.
And to take in the stain at different ratios, but it's likely that it's going to require a second coat because when you end up going down the wall, there are some inconsistencies for sure, and there are some laps, but I think when the second coat is applied over top of it, that we're going to get it bang on.
Go for it, Yul.
Yeah, so, you know, the sample that I did up that, you know, was sent around, it was such a small piece that there was no issue with the blending, and where this video has stopped really shows that. I mean, no less attention was given to the pieces of wood on the right than on the left, but, you know, in order to blend it, you needed to put a second coat on. And this video also, it shows, you know, some very good sized gaps between the panels, which are, it's almost impossible to get everything super, super tight. So again, sticking with the water-based formulation, we used a product called Alex Plus, which is painter's caulking. It has silicone in it as well. So you've got good bonding, and also you've got the ability for it to expand and contract seasonally, which is important without it opening up and creating those void spaces. So Paul Cadieux came in, of course, while we were working away in here. And he was like, you know, what about this? And I'm like, yeah, we're on it. So I think we have some images later on of the wall finished, and it shows pretty clearly that it's, you know, it's invisible unless you get right up to it. And all the panels look contiguous. There's no gaps in it. So, I mean, time will tell if they open at all. I don't think they will. And you know, we made sure that when the guys, I you know, made sure that they understood that the caulking has to go all the way into the entire depth of the joint, not just on the top. So in some places they filled it 2 and 3 times. And so, like I said, I think we've got, you know, like the best workmanship and the best looking court. I haven't played on it, but so Gary's hit the ball a few times.
Are there any other places other than now the court at the MoMA that have this whitewash finish? Because most doubles courts that you go on to are all white.
Yeah. As far as Gordy knows, there's only a black court in the Bahamas. Somebody wanted to have the court stained or painted black. And Gordy said, I'm out. I don't do that. And so he built the court, but he walked away from the finishing. And so this was the first time that Gord had any hand in finishing a court other than painting it.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the technical finish, just because they do courts everywhere, is using the Home Depot brand BEHR Bear paints, just using that on the walls. And I was pretty surprised, but he says, hey, that's what we do, and it seems to work. So can't knock 40 years of experience.
So we had this, Yul brought the sample, it was about maybe 2.5 feet by 2.5 foot square. And you finished it and then covered it in the armor glaze. And then you had it play tested here. Who was it that hit the crap out of the ball at that sample?
It was Jonathan and Jonathan's protege.
Diego.
Right, Diego.
Right, so that's Jonathan Power and Diego Elias, who's number 5 in the world now. So they came on this court, right? You had it sitting in here?
No, it was on court 1 on the singles court. And then people came up to Jonathan and Diego afterward and said, like, what kind of training are you up to here, you know?
Target practice.
Yeah.
And then that piece of that cutting board size thing got shipped down to New York and then shipped back to us. And I don't know where it exists now. Do you know where it is now?
So when it came back to the B&R, it was in one piece. When I saw it in the new doubles court being built, somebody had dropped it and it was in 2+ pieces. And I asked, like, nobody knows, it came this way. And so I don't know where it ever got to.
I think it's around. I think we still have it, actually.
Oh,
I'll check.
Very cool. Okay, so now the moment we've all been waiting for, Gary's court testing review. Now, Gary, you got to make sure that you talk about the back wall, the floors. We want a comprehensive. Can't get stuck on one area. We want the whole review, please.
So no digression.
No digression. Do you want? I'll go digression.
No,
digression.
we want the digressions. We want Gary's digressions. That's the best part.
You want my meditations.
We only want your digressions.
All right, let's see where this is going to go.
So I seem to have lost video on Eric's crappy iPhone here. So we're just gonna do an audio.
Can I just interrupt just for a second? The reason why Gary doesn't like this court is that he's a terrible loser. And the last time he was actually on this court, he lost with Jake Leishman to Jamie Nichols and was it John? Who was it? Was it John Hughes? It was John Ord. Excuse me. It was John Ord. So that's why Gary's he's smarting still from that loss. So please forgive him for he still can't get over it. He's such a perfectionist.
There's a button on the phone that you gave me to use that says "Done speaking."
It could have been worse. You gave it with Zimmerman, so don't worry.
Yeah, fair point.
Okay, so court review. I guess I gave a bunch of it at the beginning, but I will reiterate again. I guess I was singing to the choir on these gaps. What'd you call them? The gap in between the floor and the sidewall?
Yeah, I don't think there's a real name. Just the gap. Just the gap.
Yeah.
Isn't it the neck?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it can be the neck, but
expansion joint.
Yep.
Yeah, it's the joint. So the joint is extremely consistent. And again, I mean, that's like you all said, he's basically put, like a kryptonite seal around the entire perimeter of the court so it doesn't shift. And so God willing, all of those gaps will stay consistent throughout the history of the court, which makes for, there are courts all over North America that, and I think the only club that actually did it when we went to play a tournament there was the Casino, where they give you a map of their court. And the map of the court reveals all of the imperfections in the court. And most courts around North America have a series of imperfections. Some started in the impetus when they originally built, and some sort of revealed themselves over time. So this court really has none of those. It feels a little bit, I think, because of the walls aren't sort of sheet white. It's sort of like a welcoming, warm space. It's more like a luxury condo than it is a squash court. And it also sort of feels a little bit tighter or smaller, maybe less expansive. Now, I haven't measured it. I'm sure the dimensions are just right. Now it's maybe not the time to bring it up. Can you hear me? Oh, Eric's here. Eric.
Eric push start video.
Eric came to measure. Eric came to.
Gary, there's some chatter in the chat box asking for you to show more of the court.
Yeah, so now I have my video back. So let me see. There's the chair I'm not allowed to sit in. Here's Eric. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So here's the front wall. So you can see the tones on the court. I mean, the tin is the white that a normal court would be. So, it's significantly darker, but it's not dark. And it's just warm. I mean, you can see the tonal differences in between the floor and then the tin and then the wall. And, I have to say, I feel I like just standing on this court. And I know when I hit on it, I loved hitting on it. But I like being in this, in this space. You know, I don't think you can really pick up on the texture at all.
Gary, can you show the back area so that everyone can see it? Can you show the back so they can see what the new back wall looks like?
Sure.
How did you find?
I'm slow to move, so can you see it?
Yeah.
So that, I mean, you want me to show the glass or the seating area?
Well, both is good. Can you tell us a little bit about, did you find that the back wall was fast or was it slower? What was your review on that?
I felt like the entire court was true. I mean, I hit with Baldwin, so the ball never made it to the back. But actually, I think maybe he bounced off the wall once. So it's tough, but it's definitely true. The one thing I will say though is that I think this court's going to be really popular, and this place is going to be an absolute zoo. I mean, you have 2 layers of seating there, and along with the acoustics, it's going to be a freak show in here, which will be a lot of fun. You know, I mean, the whole thing feels like, you know, I've been sort of in and out and involved in real estate for quite some time, and I love beautiful spaces. And this, all of it, the court, the seating, and the area above, it's kind of a nice, tight, beautiful space. Colors are beautiful, the space is nice, it's expansive, yet it's intimate. Yeah, it's wonderful. And you know, the other thing I should say, I guess to give you an analogy again to building, is that, you know, when you renovate a house, you go to the store and you price out trim, and you have all sorts of options, and it gets really, really expensive. You can get the cheap, non-detailed MDF, you can get the more expensive detailed MDF, or you can get the all wood heavy detailed trim. And this court is definitely more in line with the all wood detailed trim. I mean, it just feels substantial. It feels the upper red lines. I don't know if you can see them from here, but they're thick and they're true. So you're not going to get in this court. You'll know when the ball is out, because you've got a good, what is it? An 1.5 inches, 2 inches in between the court and the wall.
Yep.
Okay, and it starts to sort of peel back or curve back right after the surface, so that ball will bounce funny if it's out. There'll be no questioning it.
It's a cove molding that's there.
Yeah. Although I think, you know, Bruce Taylor and the likes will probably question, but you know, whatever.
I was going to say, I like yelling at the ref.
Darrell, are you drunk?
Bro, we can't hear you.
You don't want it too good.
We can't hear you, Darrell. You sound like you've been drinking a lot tonight.
Right?
I only started at 6:30.
Today?
We can hear you now. Go with your comment.
I was going to say, if it's too good where you outline and there's no yelling at the referee, what's the fun with that?
Yeah, yelling at the referee is part of it, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Look.
So,
right.
I mean, is there anything else you want to know about my sense of the court?
I'd like to know one thing. I'd like to know whether or not you experience a tunnel vision.
Okay, I've got some background noise. Say that again.
Tunnel vision from the back of the court looking at the front, because all of the strips of wood go to a vanishing point, you know? I mean, I kind of thought about that when we were coding it and felt it just a little bit. I don't think it's going to affect play, but do you feel that? When you're at the back of the court, your back is against the glass wall, you're looking forward, Gary. Do you feel anything like that? Vanishing point, diminishing?
Are you saying because you can see the lines move towards the front of the court along the walls?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's just that the court, the walls are a little bit more detailed, right? You can see the planks, and there's more to them, so you pay more attention to them. But I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think it's, if anything, it gives you some direction. You know which way to hit the ball.
Okay, that's fabulous. Thank you so much, Gary. That's great. All right, so we got a couple more questions for our squash pros here. So Narelle, hopefully we can hear you. You haven't been drinking too much. So where would we find most wood courts in North America? Do you know?
Greenwich.
Greenwich? Like mostly Eastern Seaboard, would you say?
Yep.
Okay. Are any of the ones out west? I can't remember.
I actually think the Denver Athletic Club, their new court is a wood sidewall.
Okay. Okay. And so how would you say that this court, like a wood court, would benefit like a club player? What's going to help a club player on these courts?
They'll be able to shoot more and learn. Once they're on it more, they'll become more confident with the accuracy of it. So I think when you play on the skiddy fiberglass courts, you just don't get an accurate read off the sidewall. So it'll definitely help people get used to where the bounce is going to go, or used to where it's going to come off on the sidewall. So when they volley, it's more true for them. It's not skidding off and then you're like, whoa, I didn't know where that ball went.
Yeah, I would say like if you were to compare it to somewhere like the cricket club court, it definitely skids off those courts much more than it would off of ours.
And then the cricket club court too in the back, because it's the concrete, it'll shoot off the back funny a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Can I add something in there from a player's perspective, or maybe even from a club player's perspective?
Absolutely, please do.
It is from my particular style of play. I've had a fair amount of contact over the years, and I have in my eyes these things called floaters. And floaters you can see really well if you stare at a very bright surface or a very white surface. And I just realized that, I haven't been on a court now for a few months, and I know that if I came on a court that was white, there would be floaters all over the place and my eyes would have to adjust. And that did not happen here. So I think that this court just generally is probably a little bit easier to see on because it's not as bright, and you're more aware of where the walls are, and it's not as sort of shocking.
That's a really interesting piece of feedback, Gary. That's really cool. Thanks for sharing that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop this share, and I believe there's some questions in the chat box that I might have missed. Whoa, 47. Who's acting up here? Oh, Neil Wainwright seems to be really, he must be drinking. So I'm just looking here to see. All right, people want to see the court, crown molding. All right, does anyone have any questions that they want to ask? I'm seeing a few things here, but nothing too crazy here. Anybody have any questions for these guys? And you can ask them questions about their playing history, any of those things.
Marci?
Yeah, Sue.
So question for you. When you're talking about the gaps in the wall, and we've all dealt with wood and wood products, and they tend to shrink. How long was the maple aged for? And is there an absolute guarantee that there won't be any shrinkage? Sorry, guys.
Thank you, Sue. You are in the house.
I'm in the house.
It's cold water. There's always a problem.
Cold water.
There's always a Fleming question.
So
ask Jock about shrinkage.
It's a good question. And so, going after the two singles courts that had to be torn up, it was like the number one question. So, I mean, when this maple gets profiled, it has to be kiln dried. If it's not kiln dried, it'll come out furry. And so when they received the wood, I talked to Gordy's brother, Andrew, who was on site most of the time. And I asked him whether or not he had a moisture meter, and he didn't, but he, was sure that the wood was good and dry. So I brought one down and we checked it, and it was like 8%. So that's when it arrived. And then I imagine it's picked up a few percentages by being next to the concrete. But the concrete, before we put the floor down, I had them taping a piece of plastic over the floor, on the concrete floor, and there was zero condensate on it for a week. So they had a lot of other stuff they were doing. And so we tuck taped a piece of plastic on the concrete to make sure there was no resilient moisture coming out of that pour from, that was like done 8 months earlier, 6 months earlier, something like that. So, and there was dehumidifiers in there, there was heat in there. So I was pretty confident, but I made sure that we did both those things before any wood was, put in.
Very cool.
I have a question.
Sure.
So you say that the walls are covered in an epoxy finish?
A water-based epoxy finish.
So does this mean that you won't see any blue dots on the wall from the ball?
Interestingly, you will see the trace amount of rubber that wears off the ball, but the crazy thing is you can wipe it off with your thumb. And so, I mean, that was just a real bonus when I figured that one out. And I mean, instead of having to call up guys to clean the court, we can do it in-house easily. And you won't have to refinish the walls of the court for, I don't know, I'm saying like 20 years. Whereas the normal cycle on squash court walls can be as few as 5. So it's, it costs more up front. I mean, forgetting the wood, the finishes cost, more up front, but it's going to pay for itself in the long term again and again.
I think that's interesting, putting epoxy on it. I'm curious to see how that works.
Well, it wasn't, there were a couple of other alternatives that I had that were epoxies, but they weren't water-based. And so it had to be a water-based. And then as soon as we got into water-based, I talked to my friend who is a chemist who owns a paint store out in Etobicoke. And he's been generating paints and coatings for about 40 years. And so he said, this stuff here, Armaglaze, we're licensed to manufacture in Canada, and it's UV stable. So we use it outside on public buildings. And, so he had a panel done of plywood in his shop. He sprayed Tremclad paint on it. We talked 15, 20 minutes later, he went over with a little bit of petroleum distillate, Varsol, off.
Right.
And I was like, wow, that's pretty amazing stuff. So I did a sample with that, let it cure up, and it became our go-to because it's water-based and because of the low maintenance was just something that was a nice to have.
Well, I'm a big fan of epoxy. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, harder to work with, more expensive to buy up front, but in the long term, peanuts.
Yul, there's been some questions on here. How about blood? Is it going to be able to come off easy as well?
Very easily.
Okay,
yeah,
good
everything will come off of there easily. The floor is another matter. The floor has nothing on it but, prime grade maple.
Yeah. We have to keep the tennis players off there with their clay shoes. Narelle, a quick question for you. Is the Spectre Center doubles courts, are they wood? What's going on there?
Yeah, can I screen share? Because I actually pulled up a picture because ours are Gordy Anderson. The guys are actually down there now. And
let me see how to do this here. One sec. I'm not.
You can enable me.
It's not.
Click beside the green thing. There's a drop down beside the green thing at the bottom.
At your share screen, you should be able to.
Okay, I'm gonna let, okay, I think you should be able to do it now. I think you should be able to. Can you do it now?
Like use this right here.
So we have 2 doubles courts. The one you're looking at, that is actually going to be named after Ned Edwards. So 2 of the guys of they're really close friends of his, Ed Garno, some of you know, and Russ Ball have given this court. And then on this side is in name of Pete Briggs from Appowamus. So a whole consortium of guys put this court together. But you can see this one is perfect. The other one they weren't really happy with. The Briggs Court, they weren't really happy with how the finishing was. So they had to go around and re-sand everything. So that's why I was saying we need Yule down there, because maybe he can come lend a hand. And can you fly tomorrow? Because we're getting on crunch time. But it's kind of cool. This will be really good. We have a whole media center. And so this court that I'm pointing at right now will be the main court for when they're viewing for all their pro play. When you guys come down for the Can-Ams, you'll be playing on this court. So it'll be they've made an all white ball. It's got the black up top so that you can see the difference in the color with the ball. So no one will be yelling at the refs again for that. But it is all maple. It's a Gordy Anderson maple court. So obviously Ned's one of the best doubles players ever. And so he's leading the whole charge of the Spectre Center. So that was really important to him.
Very cool, Narelle. That's really awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's really neat to hear about how there's a lot going on out there in squash to keep it growing and thriving. I mean, COVID's been a really hard thing on our sport. So it makes us so happy to hear about this stuff. You'll be holding the US Junior Opens, and I'm sure so many other events. Does anyone else have any other questions while we're here? There's definitely going to be a big tournament to start this off. I'm sure Eric is the ideas are turning like crazy over there.
Yeah, I'm thinking for sure.
I'm for sure going to be spray painting names on the back of shirts real soon.
We haven't had a full match played. I think there's only been maybe 4 people that have hit on that new court. So that would be Marci, Dan, Gary, and myself. I don't think anyone else has hit on that yet. Is that true? I think that's it.
I think it's just us. Yeah.
Yeah, just the 4 of us.
Hey, Baldy.
Yeah.
Are we gonna get a logo on the new court at the top, the free beer clock too?
Absolutely. Like this one.
Okay, I like the old school racket there, Baldy. Is that a
Make
Slazenger,
sure the
Max
logo's
Fly?
level.
What do you got there? Oh, dude, that's good.
This is, I said this earlier, but this is
Make
Derek's
sure the
location.
logo's level. Make sure the logo's level, man.
It's been level for years, Sal. You're just crooked.
No, it is not level.
Eric, there was a question about cost. I don't know anything about that, so I think that we might have to that question might have to go to Paul Carew, actually.
It's irrelevant. It was all uncovered under insurance. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, and thank God for this.
Best
might
fire
have been
ever.
the best fire yet. Oh God.
Can we hit on the court December 21st?
Yeah, absolutely, Neil. They talk to Doug Ford first. If he says it's okay, no problem. We'll run the double big kahuna starting on the 21st.
Oh my gosh. Well, I have to say thank you so much to everyone for coming out. Once again, our community is pretty special. It's what makes this place incredible. It makes these projects happen because of all of you. And I want to say thank you so much to my friends, Narelle, for giving your time to coming out and chatting with us. One of the best players of all time you have on this call. Hopefully she will be my partner one day and we will win a championship.
The finger snaps.
Stupid COVID.
Yeah.
Finger snaps. Finger snaps for Narelle. Thank you, Narelle. So great.
So much.
Thanks, guys.
To Gary for your time and for coming out when you're really not supposed to be out and on crutches. So I'll make sure to come back to help you out of the court.
Get him home safe, Mars.
And to Yule. So Yule, thank you so much. I mean, I was late to call you that day and you'd called me 6 times and was like, let me talk about this. This is so exciting. So if you're a doubles enthusiast, you get it. We're all a bit crazy. And so we're here. This is exciting to open a court, and we hope to have those of you who are out of town join us again and to get our amazing community together. And we miss you greatly, and we hope that everyone has a happy holidays. And thank you so much for coming out.
Well
Thank you
done,
to Marci.
Mars.
Thank you,
To Marci and Dan. Marci and Dan, thank you so much.
Eric, thank you.
I'd
That's
like
awesome.
to also say
You've
thanks
done
to
something
Dan.
with your hair.
Hey, I actually had a shower and I'm left the house. I'm at the
Not in a
bar,
ponytail.
just painting and stuff. Come on.
Catherine, you've
Love you,
changed
Mar.
your hair since our call
I
earlier.
know it's up now. It's up, Yul.
Okay.
If anyone wants to stay on and ask any further questions, I'll be on to answer those. But if not, happy holidays to all of you, and we'll see all of you soon. Okay.
Thanks,
Take
Love
Marci.
you,
care.
Marci.
Thanks,
Bye,
everybody.
Dan.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Bye.
Great job, Marci. Great job, Yul.
Hey,
Thanks.
Baldy,
Wendy.
nice
Hey,
racket.
Wendy.
Nice racket, Baldy.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, Windla.
How you doing?
Nice to see you.
What
Nice
did you
to-
do for a
doing great. Good to
haircut,
see
or
you.
is that just double imaging on the top?